What is going on, you beautiful bastards? Welcome back to Unnecessary Rambling. I'm Brandon Sylvia, joined by my brother, Mr. Mondane, in the building. How you doing, dog?
Doing good.
I brought Mondane on today. We are going to be discussing, and I say this in all the videos, but if you see me looking down here, this is where my laptop's at. That's where the recorder's at. So yeah, just to let you guys know. But we are going to be going over our dream video game showcase lineup. I'm a sucker for the E3s, the Game Awards, the Gamescoms. I like, sitting back and getting to consume and kind of get an outlook for what the future of video games holds for us. And there's been some great ones out there. The E3 2015, 2016 era, two of the all-time great E3 eras, the E3 of dreams. And so I thought, I'm going to bring Mondane on, and we're going to go over and discuss our dream lineup. If we could fantasy book an E3 of dreams, this is kind of how we would lay it out. So I'm pumped to get into this with you, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is definitely going to be entertaining.
Yeah, dude, I'm really stoked for this. Like I said, I just love these style of events, and what I wanted to do more than anything with bringing you on is like I kind of have the stuff that would absolutely blow my mind, but I wanted to get someone else on to hear what those moments would be for them, because that's what I think is the best part about these events in general, is just hearing the different takes out there, hearing what really gets people excited. And so that's why I wanted to bring you on to hear what some of your, biggest, most hype announcements could possibly be.
All right. So
So
we're going to kick this off.
yeah. So I do you want to go first, or do you want me to open it up?
I'll let you go first. You're the host.
All right. So I have like different categories listed out here for how we're going to get into these topics. But with any show, you got to start it off with the opener. You got to kick the show off proper, let people know what's in store, set the expectation, set the tempo for what is to come. So I'm going to start my show off with Knights of the Old Republic dot 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 3. Not the remake, where the remake, let it do what it's doing, whatever the hell's going on with, I believe it's now with Saber Interactive, but let that be whatever it is. EA dropped the ball for a decade with their exclusive Star Wars license. It's ending in 2023. I say go off in a big way, go off with a bang, let people know, okay, hey, even though we don't have the exclusive rights anymore, we're going to put BioWare just think about this. BioWare owned by EA, and in that time period when they had the exclusive Star Wars license, the most prominent, popular, most beloved Star Wars game of all time, somehow they didn't figure out a way to get Knights of the Old Republic 3 out. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But the thing is we've seen EA start to transition a little bit, caring about their single player games a little bit more, caring about their classic franchises a little bit more. Well, who knows, man? Get some of those classic BioWare developers, have them brought back on board to work on Knights of the Old Republic 3. And in the trailer, very specific here, I want to see it open up with just a nice cinematic shot. You open it up with the EA logo, then you go into a nice cinematic little shot. You have really no idea what it is. You just see some Star Wars stuff, and you're like, okay, EA's got another Star Wars game in development. There's so many rumors of different Respawn games in development, yada yada yada. And we know like Fallen Order 2 or Jedi Survivor, whatever. We know that's going to happen. So maybe people are thinking that's what we're going to get to open the show. But open up with the cinematics, just some Star Wars locales, some Jedi sightings, some Sith sightings, whatever. You transition into gameplay where you're seeing real time action going on. You got the lightsaber battles going on with your created Jedi. And then it cuts to the title reveal, Knights of the Old Republic 3, developed by BioWare. And that's your opener. Just knock set the place ablaze from that point going forward.
Oh my gosh.
That's
That's, I mean, like you're describing it and I'm seeing it in my head. And like, just to add that little like cherry on top, like, the whole coming soon pops in, and then like the green lightsaber like flies through and it's like flipping through and stuff and like past and like now, and that's the fade to black. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
absolutely, dude. Yeah,
that's
it's
amazing.
imagine the lightsaber slashes through where it says coming soon, and then you're thinking, okay, it's a nefarious, or not a nefarious, sort of just this coming soon. We really have no idea what the release date is. Imagine the lightsaber slashes through, and then they give like a specific window that's only like 7-8 months out. They've been working on it for
Oh
years,
my
and
gosh.
completely they somehow managed to get away from any leaks or any of the information getting out there, and they have a specific date only 6 months out from that announcement.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would, wow.
That would be so epic, man. And that's these are the moments, and that's kind of how we
That's
are.
hair raising. I mean, like,
Yeah,
it gives you goosebumps on your arms and stuff when you if you just close your eyes, rewind the video, close your eyes, and just imagine it happening. Just
absolutely.
let your imagination go along with it.
And that's the thing I do want to reiterate. When we're planning this out, we're not like looking for any, we're not trying to be overly realistic here. Some of these things could happen, but some of them absolutely probably won't happen. But that's kind of the whole thing with the E3 of Dreams or Dream PlayStation or Xbox showcase. It's just to let the imagination run wild and see what we can get.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm gonna throw it over to you here for your opener, and I want to hear what you got. I'm gonna sit back and take this in. I'm gonna drink it in, man.
All right. So I'm just going to describe it as it's happening. That way, it's like you don't really get any kind of reveal of what it is until it's happening.
Oh, okay.
Um, so fade in from black. You start hearing the song "Battery" by Metallica,
That's all right.
but it's the beginning part of it, and like you're seeing a bar, you're seeing people walk up into a bar and stuff. You see Wolverine sitting at the bar. It's that scene where you're walking up on him and stuff, and it just keeps going slow, and it's you see all of these flashbacks that are happening, of Logan's past and of like some of the events leading up to this game. And up and around like what 35 and a half seconds, the acoustic part is all the way out. Then the drums hit, and Logan looks like he's about to be reluctantly forced into combat by the person who's at the bar and stuff. Then at a minute 6, combat starts, and it's in-game playing, in-game engine. You're actually playing the character, and it's gory as hell. Then it hit, and it goes all the way up to about a minute 28, and then it fades to the title card with a secure release date. And then when it's doing that, it's using the first 35 seconds of the Battery song again, which is the acoustic part.
Nice, dude. And that's for Insomniac's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Nice. Hell, absolutely. Yes, dude. I think the key point that you hit on there, that would be what I need more than anything. And this is the one question. Nobody really has any questions with Insomniac. We know what we're gonna get, at least at the very least a high quality product. The only
Yeah.
question remaining is, do they commit to the M rating? Because with Wolverine, I think you have to have that, like you said, the gore, the blood, the chaos, the carnage. You have to have that.
It's part of the grit of the character, because like even though Logan is a battle hardened individual, like, he doesn't just tear someone apart and then go, whatever, and go, like, some of that stuff sticks with him.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, that visceral nature to his gameplay encounters. Like I think of that Raven game. Um, for the 360, the Wolverine game, and how they nailed like him just impaling enemies into to spears, and just he was so brutal in that game. And I know it's that was more in the vein of God of War. This is going to be a little bit more in the vein of your modern third person action adventure games, I'm assuming. I do got a question with
Yeah,
this Insomniac title. Would you prefer for them to get a little bit more linear, or would you prefer to have like an open world similar to Spider-Man, but you can kind of traverse it with a motorcycle or something?
it almost sounds like a cop out answer, but like I want them to be true to their story and their vision. Um, I believe Insomniac is like I mean I think that they have a clear vision of where they're headed, and I don't want them to compromise it. I want the combat to still be fun and like maybe a couple of side missions and stuff. So yeah, I guess I am leaning a little bit more towards like the Spider-Man style experience, but like I'd kind of like to have it where it's like, okay, you know, uh like in Cyberpunk, you have to wait for certain things to unlock. So they give you that time to go out and experience some of the side missions. Where it's like, no, you're gonna have to go finish three side missions before the next story plot opens up.
Right.
Um, but I would like for that to be, instead of you have to do this, it's you only get to do three, and then the
Mm,
next thing happens. That way, like it's almost like pressure on the player. So
right.
kind of open world, but still pressing and shoving you forward.
Right, right. Yeah, I like that idea. Like kind of smaller scale world sections that all are meaningful to the story progression. I
Like
like that.
there's 12 things for you to do, but you can only get three of them done, and maybe that could even have influenced the storyline.
So you kind of choose where you want to go.
Choice and consequence, yeah.
I like that. That sounds really cool. That'd be a great little twist on a title like that. Well, man, I freaking love it. You know, I'm stoked for that Wolverine game. I love the Insomniac Spider-Man titles, and I can't wait to see what we get with that Wolverine game. So those are our openers. That's setting the expectation, setting the tempo, setting the pace for what we're going to get for the rest of the showcase. And next, we're going to dive into my surprise remake. I think any good showcase, you got to have a surprise remake pop up. Let the fans from 2030, however long ago, let those fans have something to latch onto. Let them get hyped for something returning that has been long forgotten. And for me, you see the Blue Point logo pop up on the screen. You hear that. Doom, doom. Whatever the hell the I'll put it in here. The Metal Gear Solid 1. You hear that intro pop up, and you see a remade version of Solid Snake swimming up into Shadow Moses. You hear Campbell on the radio on the codec briefing Snake on his mission, and then you hear Snake speak for the first time in the trailer, and it's David Hayter reprising his role of Solid Snake, and that's all we get. We don't get any gameplay. We don't get
Oh,
any no more, no further story details, nothing. You just get that, and you close out, and that's we don't need any. We just know that Metal Gear Solid 1 exists. We know it's with Blue Point, the team who remade Demon Souls. We know it's going to get that same level of care, polish, and attention. But just to let fans know, it's here. It's David Hayter. Metal Gear Solid 1 is returning. We see Konami starting to get a little bit back into the mix. They've had some Castlevania ports, some re-releases. There's rumors of the Silent Hill stuff. Metal Gear. We that's the one. If Silent Hill is real, Metal Gear is all we really need. You know, it's the one big one, the one big question mark.
uh, I want to see it on the Decima engine.
Oh,
Can you imagine Metal Gear on the Decima engine, which is the engine for Horizon?
Yep. And Death Stranding.
and Death Stranding. Yeah, I mean it works so well. You borrow all the stealth stuff from Death Stranding, and then you have all of the combat and everything, and the rest, the other half of the stealth stuff from both of the Horizon games. And it's a really good engine. The only thing that even comes close to beating it or even matching it, possibly beating it, is the latest Unreal Engine.
Yeah. Yeah. Five is it seems to be taking Unreal Engine 5 seems to be taking priority in development over almost anything. Even a lot of like CDPR, people who have built their own in-house engines are starting to be like, look, this thing is capable of streamlining development and making it a lot easier for us. So I get that, and I'd be down to see it on UE5 or Decima Engine, however they ended up doing it. But I just my dream here now we're this isn't included, but my absolute dream here would be to see at the end of the trailer, the Konami logo pop up or whatever, however they ended up doing it, and it says in collaboration with Hideo Kojima. That would be perfect for me. It'd be
That's
impossible, but it'd be
that's a lot of apology running around.
absolutely, it is.
Um,
And but here's the only thing that I think could maybe mediate this a little bit is, Blue Point owned by Sony. Blue Point would be kind of heading up the development, and then if Kojima just worked along Blue Point to maybe any little story tweaks he felt like were needed, or any sort of differences he would like to see in the plot line, maybe have him in there for just sort of to even just to
it's
oversee the game.
a producer role, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So that is my surprise remake.
man, yikes!
What you got for me, man?
I got something old school,
Okay,
like
that's why I wanted you here.
super old school. Oh my gosh, it reminds me of, I went to a video game store, and the guy who was working the counter says, "Hey, you're old, right?"
Oh man.
and he, and he asked me if a certain older console, which was the Sega Master System, came with two controllers when it was originally released. Sadly, I knew the answer. It was two. Yeah, there was a bunch of them that were released with two controllers at the same time. So that's how he packaged it and sold it. But just the whole, hey, you're old, but we've got that kind of relationship at that game store. So yeah.
I love that. That's the hometown feel.
Yeah. So my surprise remake is old school. It's an NES game. It's one of my favorite NES games. It's The Guardian Legend, where it's half shmup and half Legend of Zelda. And it would change out to be more modern style bullet hell during the shmup parts, and honestly borrow the Breath of the Wild engine for all the new Zelda parts and stuff. I
Mm,
think just retelling that story about like why you're there, why you're doing the things that you're doing. And yes, I realize I'm trying to avoid spoilers on a game that's like over 30 years old.
I respect that though. There's so many people all the time who haven't played this stuff, so I respect that.
um it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. That first stage is a little bit off-putting to people because it kind of hammers you hard, but eventually you start building up weapons. And the great thing is like the weapons that you earn and level up and stuff help you in the Zelda side of the game and in the shmup side of the game as well. So
Mm-hmm.
like you have a thing where like lasers pop out both sides, and you have it when you're the spaceship, and you can have it when you're just walking around as a person in the Zelda areas and stuff. And it works so well. And it feels like you're getting twice the payoff out of the investment that you're making in some of these weapons. Uh, it's it's a great game. It was, it's one of the first games that couldn't figure out if it was going to be this category or that category. But yeah, that's what I want. It's like just bring back the Guardian Legend, modernize it all the way up to where it's like a really good, vertical shmup, followed up by really good sections of like Breath of the Wild and stuff, and just have fun, enjoy the story, and like, blast some baddies.
Yeah, man. What when you were saying that, something I was thinking about, and jump in here and tell me if I'm way off, but something I was thinking about is that when I was playing Course, you played it as well, the
Yeah,
kind of modern shoot 'em up sort of blend of all these different things. That I felt at times how cool it would be, and I know the whole story is about kind of becoming one with your ship, but I felt how cool it would be to get off and explore some of those locations with your character. And then so you saying that, like, that's kind of the dream I had, the fantasy idea I had in my head while playing courses, like how cool it would be to get a more, intimate understanding of these different ships and of these different locations in this crazy world. So is that kind of how you're laying it out? Obviously, a
yeah,
vertical shoot 'em up's different, but
basically. I mean, and who knows? They could make it where it's not a vertical shoot 'em up. They could basically have a mixture of Chorus and Breath of the Wild if they wanted to go in that direction and stuff. Chorus felt a lot like old school Descent to me.
mm,
Um, but that might be a game that you haven't run across.
it's not.
Yeah, definitely take a look at it. If you like Chorus, Descent is basically the old school version.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that's like one of my dream style of games, like a sci-fi ship-based combat where you can also get off and explore a little bit and kind of understand the world more. I think that does sound really damn cool. This was originally released like 80s. The it's a Guardian Legend. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, I want to say 88,
Okay.
if I'm remembering right. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So yeah, that's a remake that's definitely, if that came
far
back.
reaching back. Yeah,
Yeah, but the cool thing about those type of remakes, though, if they're that far back, is that it can be introduced as like this totally new thing that people that were born in the 2000s, late 90s might not have any idea of at all. So they just go into it as it's something completely fresh to them.
yeah.
Nice, dude. I freaking love it. So next, we're getting into an official gameplay reveal. Now, for this, what I was thinking is similar to what Mondane said earlier with Wolverine, like a game that has been announced. We know it's in development, but we haven't seen official gameplay of it yet. And for me, this is one that I'm so curious about. And I think the potential here is limitless. IO Interactive's 007 game finally getting a gameplay reveal trailer. We see this suave, mid 40s, dark haired, good looking dude. He's, mingling with some ladies, and then it cuts. This is the big part to me. It cuts to gameplay, and out the gate, it immediately shows you that this game is not going to be just a hitman with, a Bond skin on, that it's going to be action packed, that it's going to have car chases, that it's going to have shootouts, that it's going to have the stealth as well. Like, it has to show all this in the gameplay. Let you know it is definitely keeping the identity of what made Hitman Hitman. It's keeping that there, but it's also it's giving you something new that IO hasn't necessarily done a ton of. Going over the top with the action, with the crazy, big explosive sort of 80s action movie vibe in there, because Bond, it has to have a little of that to Bond is a little bit of, it's a blend, and you can't just have a straight up stealth hitman style Bond experience. I just don't think that would, I don't think the fans would be totally on board with that. I think that has to be there for sure because that's a core component. But I need to see a little bit more fun in there. I want to see him chilling at the bar, smoking on a cigar, maybe even having some small dialogue options as you can kind of pick what type of Bond you want to be in this game. Are you going to be more of, a Daniel Craig, a Sean Connery? Like, what type of Bond do you want to be? And maybe getting to define that by your play style. I think that would be incredibly sick. Blending Hitman, blending Uncharted, blending Alpha Protocol, blending, all these different cool things together. That would be, IO is so huge right now. They've had such great success with Hitman that this would take them to a totally different stratosphere. So that's my official gameplay review.
Man, that's really good. The like the only thing I would add in to blend with that would be like the Spy Hunter game from PlayStation 2 for the vehicle combat.
Love
Um
that.
and because I mean like because it's just here's this tempo that you just get hit with over and over and over again. And every time that I'm a badass feeling starts to fade, you get hit with another spike to go back up over and over and over again. And like that level of excitement makes a game to the point where it's like you suddenly look over at the clock and you're like, oh no, it's 2 a.m. in the morning.
Abso-freaking-lutely, dude. You're so, yeah, I love that addition. Having that vehicular combat, or even just the vehicular kind of like, speaking to Uncharted, like that Uncharted 4 Jeep scene.
Yeah.
Those type of chase sequences are so iconic and important to the James Bond franchise. And I'm not even like the biggest of James Bond fans. I've seen pretty much all the movies. There might be a few there in the middle that I haven't seen, but I'm not like a huge James Bond lore guy. But there's no doubt that that franchise is so important, and having all those different elements, having all of them checked off, would take IO to a totally different level of a developer.
Yeah, I mean, like, and you said have making it where stealth is important, where it's like, let's have a sliding scale with it, where it's like, okay, if you do X number of things stealthily, there's this many fewer bad guys that you're going to run into once everything hits the fan. Everything will eventually hit the fan because it's the type of mission that he's always sent into.
Yeah.
Like it's almost completely like, oh, don't get into combat. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
Absolutely.
It's always gonna hit the fan. So just I mean, just giving the player that level of agency. So it's like, it's like, I've played this game before, so I want to make it a little bit tougher. So they intentionally botch all of the stealth stuff so that they can have a longer combat experience. And it allows the player to tailor the game to their preferences.
100%. Yeah. And having that Hitman-esque system of, I'm gonna knock out this enemy, and I'm gonna steal his clothing, and I'm gonna impersonate this janitor so I can get access to this level of the floor. Like, those things are integral to Bond as well. Like, Bond has to adapt on the fly to understand, okay, I need this key card. If to get this key card, I also need to look like the people who would have access to this key card. Like, those things are so important. So you already have that built-in DNA for what you can do with Hitman. And then you transition, you have all the different, like you said, the Spy Hunter-esque vehicular combat. You have the Uncharted-esque, let me reach this platform, let me reach my destination in time. You have the, I know that it's a stretch to say any type of BioWare Obsidian style of dialogue or anything like that. That's really pushing it, but
Yeah.
small little elements, I don't think it would hurt anything just to have a little dialogue option that pops up that doesn't really change the gameplay, or doesn't really change the story experience, but you can kind of be like, okay, I'm going to be a badass Daniel Craig sort of stern Bond, or I'm going to be a more jokey Sean Connery style of Bond, and you can kind of define those little bits.
I mean, they could even throw in a dash of like very light dating simulator to where you're basically seducing like one of the ladies that's part of the bad guy group. And suddenly, like, even though like you never intended, you were super suave, and now you have her key card.
Exactly. Or, and having like your Bond girls, like that's such that's a key component as well for Bond. Having like a different little lineup that would add some replayability. Who's going to be the Bond girl for this, this run of your game? Just little things like that. There's so much that could be done in this universe in game form. And yeah, I
I,
can't wait to see more of it.
I would want to see just a flash of like on the couch, old school style, split screen 4-player multiplayer, like in GoldenEye. Just like they don't have to go like way over the top with it, but just like a little throwback to that, where it's like, no, we're doing this too. So it's like our game's going to have more longevity than just the campaign. We're going
Yeah.
to give you guys multiplayer too, so that you guys can just have fun, just like you did back in GoldenEye days.
Yeah, and like you said, just it doesn't have to be anything overly. it can be just simple little levels that you're playing in sort of a deathmatch style of thing. Nothing doesn't have to be anything too glamorous, but yeah, that'd be super sick. So that's my official gameplay reveal, man. What you got for me?
Well, I cheated and I selected two
Let's
because
go.
because I thought you were going to select one of these two. So the first one was Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I want to see the new gadgets. I want to see how things are going to change, swinging through the city. I want to see the new random crimes that happen. Because like once you see a shop get broken into, like for the umpteenth time, it's like, okay, this is this scenario, and I'm going to be doing this. Now, I'm not knocking them at all. Like they had a limited amount of space and memory and power to work with, and they did a wonderful job. But like, I kind of want to see more mix up and more different styles of crime and stuff. More more agendas where it's like, you know, like choice and consequence is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Where it's like I can stop the bad guy, or I can go and check on this person to make sure they're okay. And 9 times out of 10, they might be okay. But that one time, it's like, no, they need to be taken to the hospital,
Yeah.
and the ambulance isn't going to get here fast enough. So you scoop them up and you swing them to the hospital. And yeah, the bad guys got away, but
Yeah.
you saved a life.
Right.
So, like, that kind of thing, where it's like, it's not really devastating to like your playthrough or anything like that, but like it's meant to like nag in the back of the player's mind, where it's like, here's a little bit of guilt of like, you should really be more cautious about your decisions in this game.
Right. I love
But
that.
yeah, I want Spider-Man 2.
Hold on.
Yeah,
Before you go, there's something that I want so, I mean, I want this so much from Spider-Man 2. And I don't know if maybe my pie in the sky expectations are just too high, but I want in Spider-Man 2, this is the core feature I want. You get to play, we're pretty sure you're going to get to play as Miles Morales, you're going to get to play as Peter Parker. I want just a little section, even just if it's 3 hours, where you get to play as Venom. Ultimate
yeah,
Spider-Man, just like that same sort of kind of Hulk Ultimate Destruction, just total chaos, carnage, destructibility. Venom's just smashing stuff to pieces. Like if we got that in Spider-Man 2, that would instantly be like game of the year style contender immediately for me if you got to swap between the three of those.
that would be awesome. One of the other things I would love to happen is with the Peter Parker and Miles Morales, is to borrow from another one of my favorite games, which is the Cybertron series from Transformers. Is that whole drop in and drop out two-player style, where it's like, hey, I'm playing Spider-Man 2 on my PS5, and you see that I'm playing, so you jump in on your PS5, and you see I'm playing Peter Parker, so you join as Miles Morales, and suddenly Miles Morales swings in, and we're both like, the difficulty goes up because there's multiple players and stuff, but we get to play and stuff like that. And then you're like, oh crap, I'm late for work. And then you drop back out, and suddenly Miles just swings off because something else happens. He gets called away to do something else.
Yeah.
Just that whole, like, I love the idea of sharing the experience. Um, and that's the big thing that Transformers did very well, was being able to share that experience, but not make someone have to overly commit
Yeah.
to it.
And not having to take away from the story,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
my thing. Just jump in on someone else's story, and then you get booted out during a cutscene, or you get to sit there and watch the cutscene, but it's not pertaining to like any sort of, they're not trying to cater around a multiplayer story. Like have the story for the single player, but have people able to jump in multiplayer. I have no problem with that at all.
Yeah. So, do you want to hear my second choice for
Oh,
official gameplay?
absolutely, abso freaking lutely.
Metroid Prime 4. And I
Okay.
know that plays up to the Nintendo guys all across the board. They they okay, Nintendo, they deserve it. They deserve to be able to see gameplay. We've had the game fully scrapped. The rug was pulled from underneath their feet, and they landed flat on their face when you did it. They need some love. If if any game out there that has been delayed and delayed and chopped up and had a huge amount of disappointment attached to it because of its release schedule, it's Metroid Prime 4. They need that love. They need that help to be hyped about it again. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm not expecting like anything like a complete reinvention of the wheel. I'm honestly thinking that this is just going to be another 3D style Metroid Prime game. I think it's probably going to be, if we're lucky, on the Unreal 5 engine. um, I have a feeling that the people who are working on it right now are probably looking at the Unreal 5 engine and thinking, dang, we could have waited and had this tool at our disposal. And they're probably talking about swapping over, which hopefully won't be that hard for them to recompile everything. But yeah, I'm looking for that. I'm looking for another like hard hitting, fast tempo, uh, almost like Doom 2016 style combat, where it's like, no, no, not only are you using like the grappling gun to like, you know, pull around and like get to different areas, but like one of the scenes in my mind that popped up was like Samus points the grapple at like one of the bad guys and grapples herself into the bad guy. But while she's carrying that momentum, she turns into the little ball, slams into the guy really hard, and then drops a couple of bombs into his chest and then springs away. He explodes.
Nice.
Like just something like crazy off the wall, like good cinematic, I am a complete badass kind of fun.
So let me ask you this. Metroid Prime 4, this seems to be like one of the notorious development hell Nintendo games, and they don't have. That's usually not a Nintendo problem. They've had a couple, but they usually first party their stuff is in a better state than a lot of other publishers. So I wonder this, and I could just be that this is totally speculative. Like we're not insiders here. We're two buddies shooting the breeze about video games. I wonder. There's been so many rumors about this Switch Pro, Switch 2. I think a lot of the rumors are just total bullshit and speculation. But let's, for a second here. I mean, of course, Breath of the Wild 2 or Tears of the Kingdom, that would be like the best of the best Switch 2, Switch Pro launch games. But outside of that, or a new Mario, Metroid Prime 4, that would be like a perfect Switch 2, Switch Pro style game. So, like, maybe I'm not saying that this is what they're doing, but could you see waiting for a more powerful system so that they can, really run this at the highest fidelity and all that for a new Metroid Prime?
Uh, I hope not, because like Nintendo got a lot of pushback because of the quote new 3DS, because there's games that are specifically for it that if you don't have a new 3DS, you don't get to play that game. So it a lot of the Nintendo fans felt a little betrayed, where it's like that felt like gatekeeping, where it's
Yeah,
like, okay, I didn't buy your latest and greatest system, and now there's like three or four games I'm never going to get to play.
right. Well, I,
And and they got a little bit of bad press over that, not nearly as much as I would think, but like it left a bad taste in some people's mouths. And I'm kind of hoping that Nintendo would lean towards avoiding that and not develop the Switch Pro. The Switch 2,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, no problem. Like, hey, we're going to create the next video game console and it's going to do all of these things. Oh, and by the way, it plays your old Switch games. Cool, no problem. I'm on board. Um,
absolutely.
but it's going to have to be a technological leap. And Um, I don't think Nintendo has currently paid for their R&D cycle yet for the Switch. So like with tech, there's an R&D cycle, and it's basically all the money they're willing to gamble um, on this system, and then they release the system, and they basically have to make like all of their R&D money back and bank that back up for the next R&D cycle of the next system. That's why these things come in phases and why they're so long. And in some cases, technology will slow them down, where it's like, okay, we don't have this next level of processor that can run this yet. So
Mm,
like, we're not going to try to package that in a console because the technology doesn't exist. So yeah,
right.
that's a little bit of insight. So I'm really kind of hoping that they don't do that.
Okay.
Uh, Now I can see them like making it where it's like, no, no, this is a on the largest cartridge that we have
Right.
kind of thing, and like and still even have like DLC for it and stuff like that, where it's like
Mm,
expanded missions where you're going to different planets.
that'd be sick. Yeah, yeah. I'd be down for that for sure. And then I think that just I think Nintendo's kind of found their lane with this handheld portability. I don't, you know, that's a whole different conversation. Well,
I,
actually, we're going to
we
be
don't
talking
we
about that.
we don't see them rocking the boat, do we?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And as I was going to say, we're going to be talking about that a little bit on your video, and then I'll have link to your description and all that. I'll probably, I'll put the link to the video when it goes live and everything. But we'll be talking about a little bit of that when we get into your video about console generations. But
Yeah.
we're going to move into this is, in my opinion, this is the thing at the showcases that gets me more hyped than anything. Seeing an unknown new IP from a beloved developer. This is where my hype is at more than anything. Like when CDPR, they just listed out all their new games, and I'm of course so hyped for the next iteration of The Witcher and Cyberpunk. But the new IP that they're developing in house. Like I'm so curious about that. But regardless of that, we're not talking about Cyberpunk for this, or I'm not talking about Cyberpunk for this. For me, what I want to see unknown new IP from a beloved developer. And you can say maybe I'm cheating a little bit here because it's not necessarily this is attached to a long running franchise, but this is a brand new character story that I want to see in this franchise. I want to title it Operation Ada. Ada Wong, Resident Evil, a spin-off side project from Capcom. I want to see Capcom really start to explore these characters a little bit more. And I want to see, it like I kind of want this to be, of course, it's always going to be attached to Resident Evil, but I want to see this kind of be their own thing. Like I don't want in a way a new IP where these characters are their own sort of game, and you can do whatever you want within these characters. Like I think you can get so hamstrung or so pigeonholed into being specifically survival horror, where with a character like Ada Wong, I'm thinking a lot more Black Widow esque in nature. I'm thinking a lot more of that. How did she come to prominence to be the like top ranking spy? We know that obviously she worked with Wesker, but like, how did she get there? How did she get contracted for these roles to, secure the G virus? And like, I want to see how she got to where she is. I want to see that sort of espionage spy based mission structure. And the reason I think of that as it's a brand new thing is that I wouldn't even really care if this had anything to do with survival horror. I wouldn't care if this had anything to do with zombies or with like that doesn't really matter to me with an Ada story. And so and we're also talking about a character here, and I'm going to try to wrap this up because I could go on and
Yeah.
on for Resident Evil, but we're talking about a character here who is more prominent than any other Resident Evil character who has not had their own game. You're talking about a character who has been in Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 6, and was supposed to be in Resident Evil 8, I believe. And then I think that got scrapped, but she has been a key character in all of these games. And like, how in the world is that character? How in the world does that character not have their own game? It makes no sense to me. But the only thing I could possibly think is that a lot of her story doesn't necessarily tie to horror. It ties a lot more to espionage, spy, investigation, and securing assets that, she's been contracted for these government jobs, shady corruption, like those kind of Deus Ex Metal Gear themes. So I would like to see Capcom take Ada and push her off to the side, and maybe not even, like, of course the association with Resident Evil is always going to be there, but let fans know out the gate this is its own thing. In the same way that CD Projekt Red, they have like their own sort of different Witcher takes, like a multiplayer Witcher game, then this style of thing, and then so you have your main thing with Resident Evil, but this is a little, maybe a little brand new franchise that you're creating on the back of Ada, because I think she is so much more interesting than most Resident Evil characters. And I'll get off my soapbox there, but I think Ada is fascinating, man. And I would love to see a brand new project from Capcom. And I know that's a little bit cheating because it's tied to Resident Evil, but I still just think she's so prominent. She needs to be featured more.
So I think I know why that game probably doesn't exist yet. Uh, I think Capcom's intimidated by the expectation of their fans.
Yeah,
I mean, I
rightfully
just
so.
listened to how passionate you were about it right now, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I would hate to try to develop that game."
Yeah, because people like me
It's
sitting there
like,
like this.
"Oh no."
Yeah, I have the big ass chalkboard up there. Well, this doesn't connect to that, and the yeah, but I do think though, and I do think you're totally right. And I think too, the reason I even more so think you're right is I'm playing Resident Evil 6 right now, and I am dumbfounded by in how many instances that game is doing so many cool things that, but here's the thing. Here's going to be my only get out of jail free card here, is that it has the name Resident Evil in RE6, but they're doing so many crazy cool action movie stunts that I think if you took that and plugged that into Operation Ada and let people know out the gate, this is not Resident Evil. This is a lot more Metal Gear, Black Widow, whatever you want to call it, than it is Resident Evil. And let people go in with, okay, this is going to be more of an action stealth adventure, an action adventure stealth based game. I think fans could be on board for that. And then getting to see like more of Leon's sort of story with Ada. Just there's so much that could be done there. And she's such a cool, interesting ass character. Been, spoilers a little bit here, but been cloned and shit. Like, cool stuff, man.
Yeah, yeah. It's just the idea of like shining the light on her lore and revealing even more of it behind. Like that's very interesting, but it also is like, does it rob her of some of her mystique when you do that? Like I
Right.
would even if I was like in the room helping them develop this game, I'd just be like, no, we're not shining a light on everything. We are going to play it like PT Barnum and leave the audience wanting more. If we can finagle the game to where at the end of it you have more questions than you have answers. You walk in and it's like, well, I've got a couple of my questions answered, but now I have like these other, like I answered like 5 questions and now I've got like 12 more. Like that's what I would do to you, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no. Yeah. I do. I can understand that for sure. And I do think you're spot on with there being an element of mystery with Ada's character that would be hard to peel all of that back and make her as enigmatic or mysterious or whatever. So yeah, I can see what you're saying there for certain. But what you got for me for your new IP from a beloved developer?
Well, my thing was a little bit uh generic, more
Okay,
of
let's
like
get it.
so the developer would be Gorilla. Um, they would be using the Decima engine because Lord knows it's one of my favorites. And it would be more of an arena style combat multiplayer game using the Decima engine and like everything that they've that every developer has used and figured out how to use with that game. um, borrowing all of the enemy AI stuff from like Horizon, getting all of like a lot of the combat and maneuverability in and various things like that. It would almost feel like a multiplayer arena style of Horizon, I guess, but they could reskin it to be something else. I mean, they were the ones who do the Killzone series and stuff, and their last Killzone wasn't that great. Had a
Yeah.
few issues and stuff, but thankful Horizon came along and saved them.
Right.
Um, but just a good arena style combat where it's like, there's these objectives like, zone capture or various other things where it's kind of like, a get together with your buds on a Saturday night, and we're going to play a couple of matches of this game, drink a couple of beers, and have some fun, order some pizza and like play into the wee hours of the morning.
Right.
you
Let me
know
ask you this. On that topic of gorilla in a multiplayer game, there's been rumor of Horizon trying to tackle a multiplayer style of game, or gorilla trying to tackle a Horizon style of multiplayer game. Would you be down for a like Monster Hunter-esque Horizon title where you're going down and you're scanning the enemies, you're figuring out their weak points together, you're plotting and coordinating to take down like these colossal, just huge monstrosities. Would you be down for that?
um yes, but they would have to tell the story correctly, because like, let's be honest, like Aloy can only handle so much because she's one human being.
Yep.
She's a very special human being, but she can only handle so much. So, like, even in the second game, she asked for help
Yeah.
and stuff. So, like, yeah, I, I think that would work. Um, some of the boss things and stuff like that would have to be very, very like very epic, like beyond what the elephant did.
Yeah.
Beyond uh, any of the big things. Like, we're talking like a gorilla the size that could like walk over to one of the elephants, like an elephant in real life scale compared to King Kong.
Right.
Like, that's the scale that we would have to go for, where it's like, oh no, we have this thing, it looks like Godzilla and it acts like Godzilla and it's the
Yeah.
size of Godzilla. And it's like, Aloy did her part. Well, what is her part? Well, the left knee doesn't work anymore. And now it's time for someone else to do their part too before the left knee repairs itself.
Yeah.
Where it's like, no, there has to be a coordinated plan. Because that's one of the reasons I love Horizon so much, was that you can walk into any combat and have a semblance of a plan. And yes, things can go wrong in that plan, but you can still kind of barely adapt the plan for like, well, here's another saber tooth thing coming along to eat my face. I didn't plan for this, but I have these other arrows too, so let's just adapt the plan on the fly a little bit and see if we survive.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do think you're totally right that it would have to justify being multiplayer through either story context or through, like you said, the scale of the enemy. Like just having Aloy and Ross or whoever that you would introduce into that multiplayer style of setting, like you would have to have the enemies so large, or for story reasons like Aloy's injured or something and needs help, like it would have to make sense thematically to be introduced into the game. I think that's a
And who says you have to be playing Aloy?
mhm, right,
Like, you
exactly.
could be playing like some of that Air Force tribe essentially, and like just, no, I'm just a regular guy. These are the limited weapons that I have. I don't even have Aloy's like magic stick to like take over things and do overrides at all. Like,
Right.
no, I'm a regular guy. It would be like the ODST version of Horizon, where it's like,
Yeah.
no, you're not superhero Master Chief. You are regular human in armor.
Right.
and like can get hurt bad quick.
So let me cap it off with this for you. Last question I'm going to ask you pertaining to this. If you could pick either a Horizon style of scenario like that, or like you said, an arena fighter multiplayer experience, what would you choose for
I,
Gorilla to
I think you convinced me to swap over to the Horizon
for
multiplayer
Horizon?
because I love the world, I love the lore. You know, give me more of that. Let me dive deeper in because I know, like, I mean that system was creating multiple machines to fix the environment, and then it went corrupt. And like who says there isn't this enormous Cthulhu looking monster machine thing in the Marianas Trench?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's like that's scary. The idea of like one of these things being like 2 miles tall, it's like
Yeah.
we're in trouble. Like, you know, suddenly it's like I'm not fighting that thing, I'm fighting inside it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. That gets me hyped. That gets me super freaking hyped. So that it pretty much we both came around to the fact that we're these unknown new IP where we're both kind of dipping in and out there a little bit with Resident Evil. Sort of that's I can't really necessarily call Project Ada or Operation Ada a new IP per se. And so hey, well we'll call it new title from beloved developer. We'll,
spin-off.
yeah, new spinoff, Horizon spinoff, Resident, whatever. Well, you guys get the point. We're just having some fun here, shooting the breeze. So next, we're going into unannounced sequel reveal. And for this one, I'm actually following my damn playbook a little bit here. It's not as I'm not jumping around too much here, but this is for a game that it had an entry and was just left abandoned. And you're like, hey, you know, where did that go? The first game was so good. Why is there not a second game? And for me, there is no game that fits this bill more than Sleeping Dogs 2.
I knew it.
you got you got to give me Sleeping Dogs 2. I know that there's some, Square, the United Front got shut down after developing it, and there's all the issues with that would be hard to overcome. But I'm going to paint my dream scenario for Sleeping Dogs here for you. Is that either PlayStation, Xbox? Those would be my top two. If Embracer had to get in, okay, whatever. Either PlayStation or Xbox somehow finds the way, or the somehow finds a way to secure the rights to Sleeping Dogs. They just buy it. If Square Enix is still holding that license, they buy it from Square Enix, and they put the team that developed the original back together. They try to go out, find some of those key pieces, and then of course, you have your first party PlayStation or first party Xbox studios or first party Microsoft studios. They can kind of go in and shape and move around, and they can assist on the project as needed. But really, the core pillars for Sleeping Dogs, I think they have to be back in place for this to succeed, because there's such a Sleeping Dogs is such a specific style of game. It's a game that's all about the tale of two sides. It's all about corruption within your what you believe to be the law abiding side of the world, and then finding your footing, or your where you feel a sense of belonging in the underbelly, and then having that juxtaposition where you're supposed to be reporting back to what is believed to be the good side of the world, but you're seeing the corruption there, and it's just this whole big bag of worms. And I think that story needs to be expanded on. So you need those key writers, those key developers. And another thing, and this is the big point for me, Grand Theft Auto, that style of game is just not. There's such a yearning for those style of games that Saints Row, the poster boy for a mediocre experience. Not all the Saints Rows, but the last one, total mediocre, just slapped together, not a good GTA style of open world game. It just it I had some okay fun with it, but it's objectively not solid. I think, and it still ended up selling like it was number two the week it came out. So people are yearning to go back to these style of worlds, but there's just no games in that vein releasing like there used to be. So if Sleeping Dogs comes onto the scene now, the way that it came onto the scene in 2000 and also a big factor here is that this game I believe came out right alongside GTA 5, so it just got swallowed, and if it came out now where there's just a total dry spell and people are like we said yearning for that style of experience to the point where a mediocre game like the Saints Row reboot can sell well, imagine what Sleeping Dogs 2 could do now, especially with all the fanfare that's out there for the people who, once the game went on sale for $5-10, how many people jumped in and experienced it and loved it. So I got to see it come back either under the PlayStation or Xbox, or even hopefully not Embracer, but even Embracer, I would accept that if they got the core team back together and gave them $250 million to develop something crazy.
I would like to add to that
Okay.
uh, that they also would add a digital download code for the first game onto it, where it's like, no, not only are we doing Sleeping Dogs 2, but we've also remastered Sleeping Dog 1, and it's available for on all the digital stores, but if you buy the second game, you get the first game for free.
Yeah.
And that way, like anyone who's like, I'm not so sure, I'm going to hem and haw because I never played the first one. Well, here's your incentive to play to get it now, because not only do you get the second game, but you're getting the first one too.
Yeah. That's perfect. And also like with Grand Theft Auto 5, that's become so much bigger than just an open world game. That's like this online live service, always living experience. I think there's an audience out there, people like me and your age, who they are like, man, I'll pass on that. It's too active at all times. Like, how am I going to catch up with that? So, just a more core, like, this is what it is. It's a single player narrative experience. I think there's a legit audience for that right now, and it's just not being captured. I don't really know why. To my surprise, I can't quite understand why this it, resurgence hasn't occurred yet for these style of games. So that's my unannounced sequel.
Oh boy. My unannounced sequel reveal. Well, again, it's going to be like fairly cinematic. Fade in from black, hear some piano music. Can't really quite tell what it is because it's playing at such a slow tempo. Um, and you're watching like someone from a lady from the knee down walking through the dark and stuff.
Ooh.
And like she's wearing a red dress that kind of split at mid thigh or something like that. Pans up kind of slowly while the piano music is speeding up and everything, and then it shows this blonde woman and the
No.
Parasite Eve 4
Damn it. Oh
comes
no.
up, and then it fades back to black. Done. You got to see the main character walking. You got to hear the the tempo of the music increase to the point where you can actually recognize it, and then it's gone.
Man, you literally that's my next entry. I had Parasite Eve for my next entry for old franchise returning, so I'm gonna have to on the fly adapt there. But I love it, man. I love it, and I love that. I love you setting the scene that way. I can see it in my head, seeing Aya pop up on the screen, and having the people who really know that world immediately see her character and be like, "Oh hell yes!" And then when that Parasite Eve, when that title pops up, man, people would just they would go crazy for that. And once again, that Square Enix is seemingly kind of getting back into wanting to go to these remasters, remakes, and rebooting some franchises of their old JRPGs. So I don't know if that. Well, I think I could be wrong on this, but I believe that Parasite Eve was initially a Japanese novel. So I don't know if Square Enix still has any rights to that, but I'm sure it wouldn't be too difficult to license it. But I love that,
I
man.
mean, there is a number.
Absolutely. Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I love that. And just to continue off of that for Parasite Eve real quick, is that there's so many little details in Parasite Eve that, like, if they brought back, or I shouldn't say if they brought back, if they kind of reimagined it and brought in voice acting, like if you saw that trailer and you immediately saw like Aya speak for a
Yeah.
second, and it's like, oh my god, Parasite Eve is gonna have voice acting now, because I think the mitochondria and that whole story, that scientific lore for Parasite Eve was so compelling. But if they brought in voice acting and some
Oh
good,
yeah.
that would be epic for Parasite Eve, man. And horror RPGs aren't really a big thing. So to have like a little horror RPG, that would be setting a new, hopefully setting a new bar, but definitely setting a new genre for people
Yeah.
to follow.
Well, I mean, like you said, you wanted oh, come on. Uh you wanted to have this resurgence of horror and stuff, and I think that could help with that whole category.
Yeah, totally. And Parasite Eve's one of the biggest classic horror titles that's just still dormant. And you're seeing Alone in the Dark coming back. You're seeing, Resident Evil's resurgence. You're seeing a lot of Dead Space. These titles are starting to pop back up onto the scene. So Parasite Eve, I think, has to be next. Now, let me ask you for your pick here. I love all the little specifics. I get into the details. So I want to know, if you had a choice, would you go back to the turn-based combat, or would you want a more Resident Evil 2 style, over the shoulder kind of perspective for your character?
um I would kind of want to do like the old school style combat.
Okay.
Now I know that like some games have been able to have both styles of combat and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe they could do that too. Um, but like the I really do like the like exploding wireframe thing.
Yeah.
They would have to go back and clean up a little bit of like the story from Third Birthday and like kind of smooth that back over. I mean, maybe even like uh have a mode where you can turn around and do something uh uh like view the previous storyline and stuff, where it's like,
Right.
hey, would you like to watch essentially a movie of the first three games and have us like, bring you up to speed.
Yeah, yeah. I think that totally makes sense. That's freaking great, man. I love that. I love that you brought Parasite Eve up for that there. Now, so I'm just going off the fly here, because I had Parasite Eve wrote down for my old franchise returning. So the next category we're getting into is old franchise returns. So this, where, like I said, I had Parasite Eve here, so we're going off the top of the dome. Don't have anything planned for this one, but I think that this is a key element to having an awesome showcase when you see, like we talked about earlier, that and there is some carryover here, similarly as we're talking about the remake, bringing back a classic IP, remastering it, remaking it, or whatever. But I I I wanted to include an old franchise returning, because I think there's so many, like Mondane talked about, there's so many different ways you can go about it with Parasite Eve. There's you can remake Parasite Eve, you can reboot it, you can port it, you can remaster it. There's so many different ways you could go. So I wanted to have this old franchise returns template just to be open to go anywhere with anything that you want. And for me, I had Parasite Eve, and I'll quickly talk about. I would like to see a total like reimagining, reworking, reboot, if you will, just kind of a blend of just. I would kind of want to go back to that first story and take some of those beats, rework the combat. You're a lot more of a fan of the old school JRPG style of combat. I would like to see that Resident Evil 2 style of combat. I would like to see voice work added in, and just and kind of from the ground up reimagining of what that game could be, what that universe could be, maybe exploring a little bit, driving around in that little open world. That'd be so cool. But for this one, Parasite Eve, we'll put that off to the back. Going off the top of the head here, this is the first thing that popped into my head because we're staying on the horror theme. Dino Crisis.
Oh
I,
yeah.
Dino Crisis, man. Because if we get Parasite Eve back, we have Resident Evil back into prominence, really tapping into the horror. We have Dead Space coming back, really tapping into the horror. We have Alone in the Dark on the horizons. So if Parasite Eve gets announced at your showcase, Dino Crisis got to come to mind and get announced over here. And we got horror really coming back. And for me, Dino Crisis, this I don't even think I think it just needs the Resident Evil treatment. Just remake the first one. Start there, start slowly, remake it. You don't have to really go in and you can obviously add story details and stuff, but I don't think like what I would want for Parasite Eve is a lot of reworking, reimagining what that game could be. Dino Crisis doesn't need a lot of that. Exploring a lot of the same set pieces from the first game, but giving it an up to date combat system. You're going to have to remove the tank controls. Obviously, you can't have it's just not going to work on the modern AAA scale. I love that style of combat. I'd be happy to see AAA games explore that more, but they're not going to. I understand that. So having that comeback, better character models, obviously, but the tension that you can create with dinosaurs in horror is something that frustrates me to no end that's not being explored more. It's a terrifying enemy encounter, even when you go into Horizon. And those monsters in Horizon are so just terrifying, even though it's more mechanical, robotic design to the creature, it's still terrifying as you're seeing them. They're up there with the mountains at certain times. They're so freaking big. And to have that invading your space as if it's Mr. X or Nemesis, but having it in this Dino Crisis scenario, maybe even having that same functionality for how Mr. X operates, and it's this constant pestering force that's just tracking you down, having like some big um omnipresent, just indestructible foe that is constantly tracking you down through those areas in Dino Crisis. That would be so sick. And I just think for survival horror to be at its peak, Dino Crisis has to return. So that's my old
Yeah.
franchise returning. What you got for me, man?
Oh, for old franchise returns, it sounds silly, but like so fight a lot of fighters have been coming up and like resurging, and even some developers going back and adding rollback net code, which is basically the only way to have your game become successful now, uh, so that you can show up to Evo and all this other stuff. I want to see Bloody Roar come back.
Okay.
It's a really great fighter. It's got uh, the weird transformations where someone can turn into a were bunny, and there's the were lion and the were gecko and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. Um, but it was just a good, like, solid 3D style fighter game, where yeah, there was a couple of versions of the game where you could sidestep and stuff, and you could knock people out of the ring and win by ring out and stuff like that. But the whole, like, the massive amount of power that you were wielding, where it was just like, um, you're this, white Bengal tiger humanoid thing, and you just step on someone's chest and just slap them twice with the claws out across their face while you're just like, looking at this character that you're just like, that thing's got to be 600 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's 600 pounds of all muscle. So, that hurt.
Absolutely.
And just that massive amount of like damage that you're just dealing out, and just going back and forth. It just feels like a battle between titans and stuff like that. And,
Yeah.
really good music, not nearly as good as Guilty Gear. But, like, Guilty Gear faded for a little while and then came back, and Mortal Kombat faded for a while and came back. And Street Fighters had its up and down. Marvel versus Capcom had a little bit of up and down and stuff. All the Smash Brothers games and stuff. It's really time for another old franchise to return, and I think it is Bloody Roar that needs to come back and come back strong in the fighting scene and create a well balanced game with good net code, with the idea of their main goal being we want a spot in Eva,
Yeah.
and I think they can do it.
Okay. Hell yeah. And you're seeing, like we're talking about with horror, you're seeing the fighting scene, like you said, start to make a real comeback with a lot of these, Street Fighter 6 coming out sometime soon. And obviously all the stuff that they have going on with Injustice and with Mortal Kombat. And supposedly the latest couple Mortal Kombat games are some of the best Mortal Kombats ever. And like it, I do think that scene is starting to really bubble up. I'm seeing it a lot more that people are, or Killer Instinct is another one that people want back.
Yeah, yeah.
So having a world in which there's a demand for this, I think that the supply will have to come at some point. And Bloody Roar, that's one of the ones. Like, I'm not a big fighting guy, but hearing that name, that's one of those names. It's like, okay, yeah, that definitely is one of the one, especially from an outsider. If it's a name that I can kind of identify with and know what it is, then I at least know that there's some demand out there for it. If I've heard that name. So I love that. And just seeing these scenes start to pop back up is really cool. And I know that you're a lot more into the fighting scene. Is there a Bloody Roar? Is that kind of the top of the list for you, or Killer Instinct? Are you a Killer Instinct guy?
I mean, I play them all. Right now, it's Dragon Ball Z Fighters and what was the other one? The latest Guilty Gear. I've those are two of the ones that are a lot of fun. It's just one of those things where it's like these are fun to play. I don't have to commit a million hours to try to get anywhere in this. It's like show up, have fun, play a couple of matches, and then that's it.
Right, right. I love that, dude. And like you said, just to see this scene starting to pop back up is a good sign. I love when fans are getting returns. And then like we're talking about with this category, having that big pop, it's kind of like wrestling. When you see Triple H return, when you see The Rock return after a long layoff, and you're like, holy shit, this is so cool to see pop back up. So I'm getting hyped for survival horror, for fighting game fans. Like it's cool to see this bubbling up start to take place here. So I love it. Bloody Roar coming back, old franchise returning. So into the closer. We got to close off the show. We opened up the show with the bang. We got to close the show with the banger. And this is the you're sprinkling the sprinkles on top of the cake. This is the icing on top of the cake. This has got to be you send the people home happy. It's an old wrestling term as well. But for me, this is something I've talked about before on the channel. There's nothing I really want more than this game. It's a dream fantasy game of all fantasy games for me. I'm going to lay the scene like Mondane did earlier. You see the black screen. You see Obsidian Entertainment, the logo pop up. You hear this slow, melancholic music. Then you hear like a muffled British voice, just slightly speaking to you as if he's whispering to you in a dream. The camera then cuts to a character waking up out of their sleep, but you can barely see the character before it cuts again. And then you see Professor X on the screen. He's in the mansion. He's using Cerebro to try and track down the character that you just saw who woke up out of their sleep. And then when we cut to a title reveal for the game, X-Men The Vessel. That probably could have came up with something better, but that was the most I could come up with on the fly. X-Men The Vessel, developed by Obsidian Entertainment. And after you get the title, you cut to a 4-minute legit gameplay showcase. And in this showcase, it's like I said, just 4 minutes, but you're seeing everything you need to see. It opens up the game with a customization screen. So you're seeing that you can actually go in, you can actually like customize your mutant, and you're picking your mutant powers, you're picking your backstory, all in this customization screen. You have your base stats that you're starting off with, and you can kind of min max those or create those, customize those however you would like to kind of boot your character up and get them out into the universe. Your clothing options, your hair options, your appearance, all that is available. And then we cut into the real gameplay, and you're seeing the different gameplay techniques where you're seeing this created character using fire powers, different elemental powers, wind powers, the blades, the lightning, just all these different abilities, flight based maneuvers. You're hovering over enemies, raining down fire, all in the third person perspective. I don't care if it's janky, if it's buggy, whatever happens, okay, I get it. It's hard to develop these big ass role playing games with all these systems. We got, like we talked about earlier with Monday, and we have the Wolverines, the Spider-Mans coming. We know those are going to be polished. We know those are going to be giving you great production value. For this, I just want to see the freedom to explore these characters the way I've always dreamed about being able to do in game form. And what I want that freedom. I want that customization. And you can have a real basic story set up, just run of the mill kind of. You're a mutant on the run. You're unsure of how to control your powers. So Professor X is trying to track you down, help you harness those powers. Just a Witcher inspired kind of, X-Men RPG, a Hogwarts legacy for the Harry Potter fans out there who have been wanting something legit in the game space for Harry Potter. They got Hogwarts Legacy. I want that style of thing for X-Men. We've been craving something like this. Give me a Hogwarts Legacy style X-Men game. That's my closing statement.
Oh man. So I'm not going to give it away immediately, but so my closer is uh hard hitting, you know, hard hitting music, someone screaming at you. You watch the eyelid thing, like special effect open, and it's chaos. Like you're in a city, there are bullets flying everywhere, things are falling over, stuff is exploding. Like you're looking at it going, okay, I was unconscious and now I'm not dead. Well, at least there's that. And someone shoves a gun in your hand. You're looking around at like things, trying to figure out which way is up. And your ears are still ringing a little bit and stuff. And then you suddenly everything that's kind of blurry comes into focus. You're in Night City. It's Cyberpunk 2, and this is actual combat gameplay
Hell
of
yeah.
seeing how everything's going down and stuff like that. Somehow they've sandwiched in a multiplayer aspect. Um, you know, and all you're seeing is just all of this chaos, and then uh you get away. You jump into your car and you're out after the smoke clears. Then it fades out and it fades into character generation and all of the different options and stuff that they can show, all the different hairstyles. So we've got you already excited from the combat and actually seeing real in-game combat, and now you can see real in-game character customization and the transmog system for all the clothing, and so that you don't have to sacrifice your style for stats or anything like that, and all of the polished stuff that has now happened since the original Cyberpunk, and how they're pushing things further, how you're leaving Night City and going to other cities on top of everything else and building your rep in other places. um you know you pop up in Detroit or wherever else they want you to show up, and like you've been hired out to other places and stuff like that, and all the different hacking, all of the different technical stuff that you're doing, and like how you're pulling specific heists and stuff and getting the hell out of there after you're done pulling the heist. It's like nothing small scale and nothing overly large scale like trying to blow up a building, but like actual just like here's your B flat high risk pretty good reward heist that you're pulling on certain places and stuff. You
Yeah.
know, you're not blowing things out of the sky. This is like, you know, you're doing this so that you have food, so that you can pay your rent, so that you can upgrade your equipment, kind of thing, where it's like it gets back down to the nitty gritty and strips away a little bit of the pulp fiction to give you a little bit more realism.
Okay. I have a question for you on
Okay.
it. I don't know how I feel about this. There's two like conflicting parts of my brain. One side tells me that Night City was empty for story reasons in Cyberpunk 2077. In terms of like you obviously was full of quests and stuff, but like in terms of places you can go into interact with, I can understand how they had to leave that a little bit emptier because it's a much more grittier grounded storyline. But then there's also a part of me where it's like if you opened up that or made a slightly smaller city but opened it up a little bit more to interactivity where you can go into these different stores and have communication with the characters who run the stores or have like little mini game, like I guess that's my question for if you had just say like in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, you have like a basketball mini game, you're shooting pool and stuff. Would that hurt the story and how it's told, the gritty nature of the story for a cyberpunk like game? Does it have to remove some of those funner mini game style elements for an open world?
I don't think so. I mean, why not? We'll throw in a pool, you know, a pool simulator or something like that where you're betting money and it's just like it doesn't have to be extravagant or anything like that. I mean, it's just okay, here it is. We're using they're going to be using the Unreal 5 engine,
Yep.
so like that's I think that's one of the beginner projects for learning how to use the engine is to create a pool table and actually have the balls interact correctly.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Uh, so it wouldn't be really that difficult for that system to handle that, just for them to add that in. Um, you know, the idea that you could modify and tweak your weapons as well as another mini game where it's like, okay, I'm going to tweak the stats on this submachine gun. I'm going to put a stronger spring in the clip, which is going to cost me like 4 or 5 more rounds out of that clip or out of that magazine. And um but like the rate of fire is going to go up on this thing, you
Okay.
know, where it's like I can tweak a few things, I can add these more modifications, more customization, like being able to reskin your gun, being able to uh you know uh change up your appearance to like have more exposed cyberware. I want the skill chip system to be better implemented. Right now, it's just bonus experience for things, and I want them to be able to like, well, you know, I want to pick up this skill and I pay money for it and I chip it in, and now I have that skill. Or you can naturally develop the skill and the skill can grow.
Yeah.
Um, you
I,
know, I want a lot more of the nuance from the pen and paper role playing game placed in this game.
I like what you're saying there about a lot of the interactivity or mini games, whatever you want to call it, a lot of that being tied to something that does have it fits the tone of the game, like a pool, like gambling,
Yeah,
that's layered and corruption, that's layered and sort of deviant behavior. Like of course bar fights are going to break out there. Like it could definitely have a lot of the like some sort of biker gangs and you're competing in or drag races or some style of street racing mini game, which they do have the races you can race in
yeah.
cyberpunk, but having it a little bit more where you just go into it, you bet you're doing some pink slips, like those type of things where you can accumulate cards. I like what you're saying there.
Or you could cheat, and that causes if you get caught cheating suddenly, like in poker or something like that, that causes the bar fight, and now you have to deal with the bar fight and stuff, and like yeah, just all of that stuff where it's like you can do these extra side things, and like, they're not required, but they're a way for you to make extra money, or you can get these bonus items, or any number of things like this, where it's like, let's add a little day to day, you know,
Right.
into the game and just see how it goes.
I think you're on the money there. I think you're on the money there. That makes a ton of sense for how to incorporate that into Cyberpunk. So those are our showcase right there, man. How you feeling about your showcase?
Feeling pretty good about my showcase.
Me too, man. I think we might, if we could implement this into a E3 or a PlayStation or whatever, then I think we'd have probably one of the greatest showcases of all times here. But yeah, man, this has been a blast, dude. I appreciate you for joining me on this, and I am glad that I contacted you to do this because it got exactly what I was thinking. It started, triggering my mind for cool things that could pop up, and just sharing the conversation to see, what gets us the most hype about, games and what we would like to see come back and return and all that. So appreciate you for joining me, man. Like I said, I'll have all your links and everything in the description below, so everybody can go and support you at old Modane Designs on the YouTubes. You have any parting words for the good people, my man?
Take care of yourself. Go out there, play some games, have fun.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I appreciate all of you for tuning in to the video today. And man, if you want to fill out this little seven, I'll have it linked or I'll have it in the timestamp so you can see the format. If you want to fill this out and give me your 7 games, we would love to hear from you in the comments and read through all this stuff. So yeah, as always, I love shooting the breeze with you guys in the comments. So always jump down there, give me a chat. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.